happens when the U.S. gymnasts and the Duggars collide? Really? Not even kidding. Okay, so are you like me and you have not paid attention to the Olympics? I usually love the Olympics, and for some reason I just haven't noticed that it's going on. I've been super busy. I've got summer, my son, stuff, life, planning for the school year, and I was like, whoa, it's going on. But I have been following the news, and I've noticed there's a lot of chatter around Simone Biles, who is the most decorated female gymnast, probably the best ever in the world, and she pulled out of the Olympics. Simone apparently had a tough night when she was doing a team competition, and she stumbled on the vault and just was out of sorts in terms of, like, she didn't look the same as she normally did. I noticed that in my comments on Instagram, a lot of people were talking about how she just didn't look the same, and that even though she was not looking the same, she still finished really high in the scores because her starting points were so high compared to other competitors. Despite all of that, she ended up pulling out of the Olympics. And for some reason, there are some right-wing pundits that are using this as an opportunity to slam her, calling her weak, calling her all kinds of names, and using it as this means to say that she's a snowflake and that she, by pulling out to take care of herself, she's not as strong as other competitors that have worked through really tough things. Like the comparison was of Carrie Strug, who had injured her ankle, and she still managed to stick the vault at the very end of the 96 Olympics, which led to the U.S. team winning the gold medal all around. So imagine my surprise when I noticed this. Now, it was caught by Redditors, and then it was picked up by The Sun. That's how I found it. But good job for the snarkers for finding this, because it was on somebody's Charlie Kirk. It was on a Charlie Kirk's Instagram page, and he says, Simone Biles just showed the nation when things get tough, you shatter into a million pieces. So the whole adage, like, get tough and be tough and don't let the toughness, like, you got to have emotional toughness. But some athletes have spoken out in support of her. Michael Phelps, who is the literally most decorated U.S. swimmer in history, he has spoken out in support of her and the immense pressure that goes into being Olympic athletes and the strength that it must have taken her to pull out despite all other things. She had said that she wasn't doing this for herself, that there was a lot of people that had a lot of expectations. And let's be honest, in the last several years, there's been a lot that's gone on outside of just gymnastics when it comes to the stuff related to Larry Nassar and all the different gymnasts that he did things to, including Simone. And with that being said, knowing she's had the weight of the world of everyone expecting her to win the gold medal, as well as carry this team to another Olympic gold, she decided to pull out because she didn't feel like she was at her best and she needed to take care of herself. A very brave decision. Not one that's going to be easily understood by everyone, but it doesn't matter as long as she is doing what's right for herself. And if her mental health is suffering, I think, why should she be forced to stay? So, mind you, Charlie Kirk, who I just looked at his Instagram page and seems to be a wild conspiracy theory person, he might be friends with Tucker Carlson, I don't know. But his comments were getting blown up by this other guy named Ryan Moore, who was kind of like dragging him. And he said, I hope a few people will stop and ask themselves why they are looking so hard for someone to hate instead of love. Simone Biles has won 6 Olympic golds, 4 gold for America. God bless Simone and everyone on Team USA. And it was his next comment here that actually got a comment by Jill Dillard. And it said, new comment thread here for everyone who was a ABUSE'd as a child and who has won 6 or more Olympic medals. I will listen to your criticisms of Simone. And Jill Dillard said, amen. Now, a lot of the people in the comments of that post were basically like children that did have issues growing up that had been ABUSE'd, and others that were like saying, you never know what someone's gone through, having to have dealt with that level of what Larry Nassar did to her, and then have to be like a world standing athlete. It's a lot of pressure, and it's also a lot for her mental health. So my thought here is that Jill is obviously saying that we shouldn't be criticizing someone for doing something for her mental health, and that's the best thing for her. And in a way, I think Jill can empathize with her because she grew up in a family she's gone through her own ABUSE. To me, I feel like she's commenting here and acknowledging I'm a child of abuse. I am a child that has had a lot of expectations. I am a child that has had everyone looking at me and wanting to know why I walked away from something and why I did something. And Jill has always cited that her choice to walk away has been for her mental health and to make sure that she can become and like work towards healing and have boundaries for her family. It doesn't surprise me that she would understand what Simone's going through given what she's gone through as a child. And to me, it's indicative of the fact of her further identifying herself as a child that went through hell and back. Not only was she one of the girls that Josh did the horrible stuff to, but she also grew up in a home that had blanket training and corporal punishment was the norm, where her parents used the rod according to police reports, and where she grew up where the parents liberally used these rods to discipline her with biblical discipline. So with her to recognize as a child of ABUSE is a huge step, I believe, towards her healing. And I think it can also be said that with everything that she's gone through over the last several years, so many people have criticized her and they've said, well, you walked away from everything. Like, why are you being so terrible to your family? Why would you, under the weight of all of this, come back, go be with your family? Don't be so difficult. Stop speaking out against your family. You know, even her sister Joy at one point made a comment about how she wished that Jill would keep it private and not say things publicly about her family. Jill did speak out against her family in the fall when she spoke to People magazine, and then she did multiple Q&As where she talked about some of her things about growing up, things that she's changed, things that she does differently as a parent. She has family members that wishes she would shut up and that she would stop doing this. And Jill has said, I've had to distance myself from my family for my mental health. I've had to distance myself from people who want to criticize me and tell me what to do and tell me where to go and want to bring me back into this world. So for me, I understand this to be as not only just a support of her, but also an understanding and an empathy. Like, what I like here is that she's striking out also against the fundamentalist belief that you have to just toughen up and you can't work through things and you can't if you actually admit that you have some mental health issues and you're dealing with mental health crisis, that you have to just suck it up and get through it, which is another thing that she dealt with growing up. It's hard for anyone to understand the pressure that Simone is under right now, but if Simone dropped out and you can't understand that, I feel like it says more about you than it says about her. And unless you're in her shoes, it's hard to criticize. So I actually agree with Jill on this as well. Now, Jill could just be agreeing with a point, but I also feel like knowing how Jill is and knowing how sensitive she is to what she went through going through in her life, knowing how public she's been about her story and how criticized she's been as well, I think this is also just her kind of sending a nod to, you know, what she's been through and that she can empathize. But I also think we are so harsh on people when we don't understand them or they make a choice we don't get, and we'll never know someone's journey unless we've walked in their shoes. So for this, Jill is supporting Simone Biles, and I want to know who you're supporting. Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.